we must talk about this topic. I believe I would be remiss if I didn't touch on it. If I just went about normal business the day after, it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be right, especially because Charlie Kirk, what happened to Charlie Kirk, the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, is as relevant in what we talk about as ever before. Here's the deal, my friends. This is a pop culture channel. I talk about pop culture. I talk about culture. I talk about social stuffs. That's what I do. That's where I feel my efforts are most applicable in order to get messages out, because I have such a wealth of knowledge on nerd culture, decades of playing, watching, interacting. I know how to discuss these things that they've been butchered for the past, we'll say, decade now, by, we'll call it out now, the commie Marxist left. If you are any normal traveler of my channel, you know this is not the first time I have used that word, those words. Commie Marxism. It exists today. It has existed for the past 100 years or so, ever since Karl Marx decided to basically poison the culture of the world with what he believed. Lazy philosopher, and has caused more harm than anybody in history. That may be a hot take for some, but it's a truth. Understand his ideology, the Marxist ideology, which was further expounded by communism and socialism, has done more damage to the world than anything in the past 100 years. More people have died in countries ruled by commie Marxism than in totality anywhere else. So when I bring that up, you must understand, I'm not simply bringing it up to talk about politics, but I'm bringing it up to talk about what they called the long march through history. In the 1960s, Khrushchev basically said, we're not going to beat you in a war. We're going to beat you another way. We're going to infiltrate. We're going to poison, and we'll get them while they're young. That's the creed of commie Marxism. Get them while they're young. Indoctrination. What Charlie Kirk believed in was fighting that indoctrination. Charlie Kirk, and I will admit here now, I don't particularly follow Charlie Kirk. I didn't pay attention to what he did. I knew who he was. I generally knew what he did with TPUSA, but it was not something I really followed hard because he didn't need to speak to me. I have a decade on the man. I had a decade on the man. I hate to say it like that, but I had a decade on the man, and I did not need to be educated in the stuff that he was choosing to educate a younger audience on. So Charlie Kirk chose a path of discourse. He chose a path of discourse where he believed that speaking and educating and having clear and open, fair and even debating could change hearts and minds. And that is not an inaccurate belief. Sometimes that is how you must win hearts and minds. You must make them confront their fake, false, corrupted, poisonous, cancerous ideologies. I personally do not believe that. I believe there is no conversing with somebody who has given over their soul, who has replaced all religion with commie Marxism, because that's what it is to them. It is their religion. I am not particularly a religious man. I may be of the Jewish faith, but I am not particularly a religious man. But I do not frown upon people who choose the religious path because it gives them hope, it gives them structure, and it allows them to deal with the horrors of our world. Charlie Kirk believed in all these things. He believed in faith. He believed in open discourse. And unfortunately, he has paid a price, the ultimate price, for for following that dangerous path. Because as I said, it is my personal belief, you cannot talk to these people who have replaced all things of faith, all things of soul, with ideology that is corrupting, that talks pretty language, but in the end is run by thugs, villains, and pure evil. So once again, I'm just thinking, Adam, you talk pop culture, you talk social issues like that? Why are you talking about this on your channel? Because here is a truth. Here is a truth that must be addressed right here and now. I have waited 24 hours to do this for the simple fact that other people wanted to take their time to appreciate Kirk, what he did to begin the mourning process properly. And while I know in conversations with some of you who I've had, my emotions did not go to the outright rage that others did. Maybe it was because I was taking a nap after yesterday's stream because I had stuff to do last night. I took a nap to rest up. I woke up to having this happening. Maybe because I didn't have it live. Maybe because I was catching up and because I was in such a rested state that I took it on in sort of an emotionless moment. I absorbed it all. And my mind went into analyze mode, went to analytical mode, and I started looking at the big picture, knowing that today I was going to have to talk on this, have to speak on it. So I left the rage and the righteous fury to others who had no other way to process this but to feel that. And I still leave it to them. Process it, do it. Do not do anything silly or stupid. Do not do anything that gets you in trouble. But go process what you need to. At the time and still now, the most emotion I have had and have in this moment is for his family. That I feel sorrow for his family. That is where my emotion went. But because my emotion simply went to their sorrow and I went into full analyst mode, I started thinking about what am I going to talk about? Is there any way I can approach this where I can actually have a conversation? Not just well wishes and prayers and stuff like that, but can I take this to the next step? Because we're going to have to go to the next step eventually. The mourning process necessarily, but we must go to the next step. And that's where I'm going to go now. There are others who you have gone to, I'm sure, to process and get through this. But now I hope you will stay with me now and watch this as I paint the picture of who's to blame. We've mentioned commie Marxism. What is really to blame in this? Those who have been indoctrinated and those who push the indoctrination. What am I talking about? I am talking about entertainment, media. That's who I'm talking about. Let's think about this. For a decade now, ever since President Trump decided to run for office, we have been living in a world where people have openly cried for physical harm if you do not agree with their leftist ideologies. They have openly called for harm, openly called for murder. And for the longest time, it's like, okay, these are toothless people. They're just squawking in the wind. But we didn't realize until the past few years ago, it's become more and more apparent, is the fact that the indoctrination, the seeding of our institutions, be it educational, be it business, be it entertainment, commie Marxism poisoned multiple generations. Because what you saw yesterday, that is how communism weeds out those who don't share ideas. They kill them. Just ask Trotsky. If you understand history, just ask Trotsky. He got weeded out because he had a different version of communism. So they kill him. They kill you when you do not agree with the dogma. But here's the point now. I bring this back to this. We are here. Here is the entertainment industry, social media, news, legacy media. Over and over again, they have been pushing ideology, commie Marxist ideology, into all forms of entertainment and news and social media posting and gaming. All of it's there because that is the process. Softly integrated into a story, into a narrative. And then you watch it and you don't realize it. And the young who are susceptible get brainwashed, get indoctrinated. It's been happening all over the place. And the fallout of yesterday gave us all the examples I need to prove this to you, to prove my point. The enemy behind this, those who are responsible for creating a culture where somebody picks up a gun, goes to a rally at a university, and kills a man of peace. Charlie Kirk was a man of peace. Kills him because his words were more dangerous, changing hearts and minds, than the threats of violence from commie Marxist thugs. So I mentioned this. Let's look at this now. Let's look at the fallout from yesterday. And now this is the benefit for myself of having waited a day. Some of these issues have been resolved. They have been solved. But we must ask the question. They happened in the first place. First among them, we do know that an MSNBC talking head said something really retarded, really out of line, and they have since been fired. But let's remember, what has MSNBC done? What has CNN done for over a decade now? They have labeled you an enemy. They have called you a Nazi. They have called you many horrible things if you do not comply with commie Marxist leftist ideology. You are evil. And that is a core aspect in how you turn somebody into a monster, because they think they're a hero, because they're told over and over again in reports, in interviews, in stories that these people are evil. And well, wait a minute. I'm fighting evil. I have to kill this person because they're evil. So they feel justified, and that is the point. They want to create justification for actions. That is what the media has done. So MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, all these far left pieces of trash, yellow journalism, propagandists, they have spent decades telling you, telling people what's evil and what isn't. And some people are easily brainwashed, easily indoctrinated. Therefore, that is where it begins. It begins there. When trusted news sources are pushing narratives, evil, deceptive narratives, to twist your mind into doing horrible things. So that guy got fired yesterday. I don't know his name. I don't care about his name, but he got fired immediately. But MSNBC, there is blood on their hands. CNN, there's blood on their hands because they've been pushing these narratives. But it doesn't stop there. That's just the news end of it. Now let's talk about the entertainment. Chief on this list, the first thing we all saw yesterday were people maliciously gloating, happily celebrating the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This is the double-edged sword of social media. You're free. You have the freedom of speech here in America to say what you want, but you are a monster if you do that. If you celebrated his death yesterday, and some people got caught, to use the term, caught in 4K. The first one that got caught, what turned out to be a tranny queerdo that worked at DC Comics. They just started a new Red Hood series. This person came out, said these, I'm not going to read this. You can see it right there, said this despicable thing. And very quickly, the internet said, look who this is. DC Comics, Warner Discovery. Do you support this? Well, they reacted quickly, and this he, she, it queerdo was fired. But we asked the question, this person, and many more before this thing that wanted to consider itself a woman, but is really a man. It was hired in the first place, as were many others who have been putting radical ideology into comics, putting the words in the mouths of heroes like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, The Flash, putting words in their mouth meant to indoctrinate, meant to twist logic into hateful thoughts. So the entertainment, they have been doing it in comics forever now. And the fact that they fired this monster, it means nothing, because why was this person hired in the first place? Why was every other person that has ever said a monstrous thing allowed to be there and say it in the first place? Because they all believe in the Marxist, commie Marxist ideology, and it begins there. You see people's mind to hate Charlie Kirk and people like Charlie Kirk who speak honestly from the heart and only want to debate you. And when you're losing that debate, when people aren't buying your comics, suddenly, the fear grips you and you must retaliate, because the commie Marxist ideology dictates a response of violence, not discussion. So it started with that one. And then there's this. Remember, it's in gaming too. We were already questioning stuff like Ghosts of Yotei. Well, one of the senior developers cheering. And we go back, we connect this to the news, cheering that, oh, wow, I hope this guy's just like Luigi Mangione, who killed that CEO. People celebrated that. That is chaos. That is anarchy. That is commie Marxism at work, and they celebrate it. This game is DOA. But it's not the first game. BioWare, Poisoned, Dragon Age the Veiled Guard, nothing but a DEI trainee queerdo dating simulator meant to indoctrinate people into that bullshit. Ubisoft and everything they do. Other companies, Capcom, Bandai Namco, all of them guilty. Many American Western developers guilty by injecting all this agenda-driven nonsense into things that should be escapism entertainment, all to indoctrinate. So it is no surprise that you are indoctrinated. And no, it is not video game violence. That has nothing to do with it. And anybody on the right talking about video game violence, you're just as culpable in looking at the wrong thing. It's not about the actions on the screen. It's about the text, the color, the flavoring of what goes on in there. That is what it is. Teaching people to hate through a story has nothing to do with violence. They're going to read the context. They're going to somehow be connected to these monstrous characters that created. Remember, Dustborn, or where the hell it was called, the game all about being rebellion against the Orange Man's reality that he has set into place for them. These people think they live in a fantasy. I'm sorry, they live in a fantasy. They think their fantasy is reality. They think they're being hunted. You have people like Rosie O'Donnell mouthing off and creating these wild fantasies about the president and other people. They're obsessed, and they keep pushing this stuff, and some people listen to them. These are people who have voices. Stephen Colbert, all of them pushing indoctrination, pushing wild fantasies in gaming and television. Sooner or later, somebody cracks. They buy it. They eat it up, and they think, I have to stop this evil, so I'm going to start with a man of peace like Charlie Kirk, who is undefended. I'm sure he had security there. There were police on hand, but nobody was thinking about a sniper attack. This isn't like the president who has spotters looking around everywhere, making sure. There is no Secret Service there. There's none of that. Charlie Kirk was a U.S. citizen, a private citizen who did his best to protect himself, but probably never in his wildest dreams thought that somebody 200 yards away would take a shot at him. All because indoctrination through entertainment. Andrew Breitbart said it. He was correct. Ideology and politics. I've added the word ideology. He said politics. I've added the word ideology is downstream from pop culture and culture in general. These people are fueled by these things. So this guy talks. Ghost of Yotei is done. It was probably going to be dog shit anyway, but it's done. Nobody's of note or merit is buying this game now. People are canceling pre-orders because indoctrination. It doesn't stop there, though. For years, we have given South Park a pass. I myself said many a time they are the equal opportunity offender because they always go after everybody. I'm not going to blame Parker and Stone. I'm not going to blame them for this, but I'm going to say they're part of the problem now. Because for weeks now, their obsession with President Trump, conservatism, and people like Charlie Kirk, who they put on an episode, and Charlie Kirk did what you're supposed to do. He laughed it off and he leaned into it. That is how you diffuse things. You lean into it, you laugh it off, you clap and say, all right, I made it. I've been parodied and mocked by South Park. But this isn't the South Park of 20 years ago. I heard the numbers. And I know because I watched the episodes for a long time. Obama got made fun of a couple of times, kind of offhand. Never anything about Biden the entire day. They ran seasons during Biden's administration, never mocking Biden, never mocking Kamala. They mocked Trump in 2016. Fair game. But now here we are. And South Park has been relentless, obsessive even, in their attacks on President Trump and mocking Charlie Kirk like this. So I am not going to say, do we blame South Park? No, we don't blame South Park, but they are now part of the problem by legitimizing this type of discourse, by making it so you can warp a personality, you can double down, and by singularly focusing on something and not being the equal opportunity offender. So let's point out, and here it is. They pulled an episode from a re-airing, but it's still there. It's still there. And I believe in this clip they showed Eric as Charlie Kirk being violent, which was not Charlie Kirk, not a violent man. I've been done with South Park for a long time. I haven't cared. Now I really am done because I don't think Parker and Stone are fair anymore. I think somewhere along the line, they bought into it. So they're not to blame, but they are now a part of the equation, part of the problem. There is no proper way to defend a one-sided assault. So I've shown you these things, but it goes beyond that. Earlier this year, I spent a lot of time mocking Disney Star Wars, especially Andor and Acolyte last year and all those things because they're heavily agenda-driven. And I particularly went after Andor because notably they made it very clear Tony Gilroy is a dumb piece of shit who wanted to take reality and put it in Star Wars. And that was a clear case of feeding their audience. I have a lot of these. These are some of the ones, and I'm glad I saved them because here we are. Andor's ever more relevant. Free Palestine, the Gorman Front, and its political lies by the Empire seem all too familiar. This particular piece of shit right here. These people are fully indoctrinated. They need entertainment to reflect what they believe, and it only spurs them on. During Andor, this was constant. Whether you agree with it or not, it shouldn't have been there. These people are broken, but they're broken because of decade and more of commie Marxist leftism pushing through entertainment. And let's not forget, Superman did it too. James Gunn's Superman did it too. It was in there. We didn't comment on it heavily because it was brief and you couldn't exactly line it up, but it was also in there. It's in all these current movies, MCU, DCU, Disney Star Wars, Disney Pixar, all of it, television shows, Rings of Power, all of it's in there. And it has been there. And it's the medium through which all these things. Charlie Kirk was essentially murdered because entertainment normalized these things, from news to movies to books to comics to games. They've spent over a decade, more even perhaps if you dig deeper, normalizing all of this so that a psychopath, a broken individual, will feel justified in murdering, assassinating a man of peace. It's that simple. Understand what we're doing here. Understand why I will keep covering pop culture the way I do. Because one must shine a light on these things. Everybody who covers pop culture, we are doing this because we realized something was wrong in the things we used to love. We saw it. Some people couldn't put a name to it because they may not know the history of commie Marxism, leftism. I do. So I can put a name to it. The destructive force that means to indoctrinate and cause people to act violently when you disagree with what they believe in. And all these forms of media, as I said, from news to entertainment, have normalized this. That is why Charlie Kirk is dead. Because they normalized it. They made it okay in some crazy person's mind to kill a man of peace who only ever wanted to talk to people. So in the wake of this, my hope is that while we should all remain vigilant, protect each other, protect your families, watch out, do not fall back into complacency. Be active, but do not be reactive. Do not make a mistake of doing what they want you to do. What you need to do now is think carefully. Speak up. Keep shining the light on everything. That is what they don't want. Sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. They cannot hide from it. So, one might say, Adam, you're silly to be talking pop culture in these times. No, it all came from this. Because poisoned pop culture by commie Marxist leftism leads to the evil acts we are seeing, the normalization of evil. Evil must not be normalized. I can't go out there and physically fight evil, but I can point it out. I can shine a light on it. And others will do that too. And if we spot these people, call them out. If we stop normalizing it, that's how we push back. Do what Charlie Kirk wanted to do. Keep talking. Have discourse, but have discourse with each other. Have discourse with people willing to listen. I will say this. There's no more trying to convince leftists. They're lost. They're done. They were broken long before this, but now it confirms there is no open discourse to have. But talk to your loved ones, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to people who are willing to listen. Support people who are speaking truth, facts, and logic. When they are threatened, let people know this person is being threatened. Let's keep an eye on this. Let's look out for each other. That is how we beat this. By not being silent. They want us to be silent. They think a thuggish, violent act will keep us silent, but it will have the opposite effect. We are now going to be more vocal than ever. Charlie Kirk did great things. He introduced youth who were disillusioned and wondering to a more common sense approach. And now it's time for people to pick up his cause and keep going, keep taking it forward. And I hope that in all of this, a lot of people are able to find some comfort and peace in processing all of this. And I hope in some way, shape, or form, if you're watching this, I hope you found some understanding in a way to how to deal with it. I myself, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I hope that everybody will continue to support anybody who is calling out truth, shining light on evil. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, check out my gaming channel at Renaissance Nerd Arcade, and follow me on X Twitter under @TheRedNerd. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy.